Must be doing it.
I think it's doing it.
Okay.
We never know.
Hello, Brandon.
Sorry, you're such a jackass.
Take 2.
Hi.
Let's start over.
Who cares? Okay.
Hello, Brandon.
Hi.
How are you this
wife.
fine Wednesday afternoon?
Good. Good. Butchered a lamb and split a pig head and took a whole bunch of bacon off the salt.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, I see it stacked over there. It's like
Yeah.
3 large stacks about that high.
Yes, drying.
About 2 feet high each.
It's
Yeah.
going to dry out all night because it's dry enough in here to do that to bellies, and then smoke all day tomorrow and probably the next day or something.
And we're not going to have to redo the smoker this time.
No, it's working. It's good.
Mid-smoking.
Yeah, I just have to halfway burn half my face off whenever I add fuel to the smoker, which is better than fully burning all my face off.
I'll leave it at that. Maybe we can talk about our smoker situation in another podcast.
I think that would be good.
But I wanted to introduce everyone. This is our official first podcast that will be on YouTube. So there's a visual component to this.
We were just kidding last time.
We were just kidding. We've also done a couple of like test runs and other little minor shows about other topics.
And upgrades, kit upgrades.
We have done massive for us, kit upgrades. So we'll have this available both on iTunes, as we have already had, audio only. But then we're hoping to develop a YouTube audience. And so some things might be visual, but we're hoping not to make it too, obsolete for the iTunes listeners.
This will be the same content.
Yeah, same content,
Yeah.
just us talking, hopefully, about interesting things. So yeah, that's big news. We're really excited. You can check us out on YouTube now. Trying to think of any other housekeeping things.
Well, what's the name of our YouTube channel? Does it have a name?
Oh,
or not
I have
really?
not. So we're working on rebranding that.
Okay, so never mind.
So
we don't have it yet.
I've got a couple ideas. I don't know if the podcast is going to remain a Meatsmith Harvest as it has been, because we've still done less than a dozen, so it's still relatively new for us, and we're hoping to amp up our rate of pumping these out.
But so it might have a different name.
I think it will.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got some good ones that I'm working with right now, so be looking for that. And let's see. We've got classes that are almost sold out. There's a couple left for our April and actually just our May class. There's 2 spots left. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you join us there.
Mm-hmm. And this is the family pig.
The family pig. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be posting some more family pigs at the end of the summer. We'll post them in the next couple weeks, actually. And then we'll start posting for our fall family pigs pretty soon. Yeah. I'm starting to schedule out the whole year. So be looking for that. You can follow us also on our homepage. We've got an email newsletter sign up. And that is actually the primary mode that we keep in touch with people. We don't hound your inbox. We get them out maybe once every month or two about all the big new things that we've posted and things like that. So you can sign up for that. And if you do, we also have a free chapter from our Butcher Salt series to give you for thanking you for signing up. So it's on Meat Cookery. Brandon wrote that several years ago now. So
yeah,
please
and
join
it's
us
still
there.
True.
The Meat Cookery, yeah. We still cook the same way.
That's gratifying.
Yeah, I know.
It's the point. It's the Meat Cookery chapter is like the axioms that actually guide butchery.
Yeah.
If you understand how to cook meat, then you are qualified not only to cut a pig or a cow or anything, but to actually authoritatively cut one. Right. Because that's the point of the cutting, would be the cooking.
Yeah. So we just posted that as our final chapter in our Butcher Salt series on our membership page.
Because there's a lot of chapters.
Yeah. So did you just read it when we...
No, you're just reminding me.
Oh, okay.
And I happen to know it, like every detail, because I have been saying the same thing
right
for 8 years or something in every class.
Yeah.
Like it really all starts with the pot, the pan, and the oven, the braising, the
Yeah.
pan frying, and the roasting, and butchery builds up to it. And if you don't have that end in mind, then you don't know where to cut. Because you're not being guided by the telos of the cutting.
Yeah.
You don't know why to cut, which is a much more empowering knowledge base.
Yeah.
Know why to cut in a certain place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 more housekeeping things. You might be hearing our children because we're recording this now in our butcher shop, which is a different situation than what we were doing. It's a lot better in a lot of ways, but it also means that our kids have easier access to us. They're just outside playing. So
They're laying siege to us right now.
they're swinging on the tree, the
They're
cedar
invading.
tree. It's very idyllic, but we might hear them from time to time. They might even come in.
You
and
might
interrupt us.
hear, some soul-curdling death screams,
Yes.
and just know that that's normal.
And I have my own filter, and
okay.
I can tell if it actually is fatal or almost fatal, or if it's anything less than like lots of blood. I'm just gonna ignore it. So
Make them stronger.
or I might leave for
Strong
half a minute.
kids.
I might leave you to just chat by yourself for a time. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we love recording in our butcher shop now. The ambiance is so much better than our side closet.
We like this place. I like this shop.
It's a place of order, and
Yeah.
every place else is not so much sometimes.
Yeah.
The other thing I kind of wanted to bring up is our Instagram page,
Oh.
because I've started, the wheels are turning again. I tend to do this every time I get something up, like our YouTube page. I'm like, oh, what else could we do now? But if you're on Instagram and you're not on our Facebook page there, our Farmstead Meatsmith page on Instagram, check us out there, because we're going to be running a series of just promotional fun things, giveaways maybe, or little contests to kind of amp up excitement and grow our page there. We're nearing 5,000 followers there.
Cool.
And that's really exciting, because we give it some attention, but
I
it's
like
not something
it.
we focus on.
Yeah.
But I want to start doing that more. It's a great audience there.
It's an easy platform for me to
Yeah.
post things on. And so it ends up whoa, Johnny just flew past the window at a very high elevation. Anyway, Instagram is, for me, it's an easy platform to post on. So it's like a micro diary of the custom slaughter butchery stuff that I do, because it's just so quick. And sometimes we're able to do the live videos. I don't know, Instagram live or no, not live. Little Instagram hands off.
Stories.
That's
yeah.
it.
The little circular
And
tabs at the top.
Yeah, and we can actually record some pretty educational stuff, because the thing about our setup is that we're really low volume, because I am the only labor. I'm the only physical labor. And so we can only slaughter as many pigs as I can slaughter by myself and butcher. And so that keeps our volume extremely low, which means I don't have infinite bellies and hams on the brine and guanciale, or I'm not always making sausage. It's actually kind of sporadic. And so I like to be able to seize the opportunity of like, wow, I happen to have bellies at several different degrees of curitude. They've been on the salt for varying days. I could actually do a quick Instagram story. That would actually be quite, it would cover a lot of the nuts and bolts of curing bacon, as one example.
It would document the chronology in a very simple fashion.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the trickiest balancing aspects of our business is the low volume, because to put out as much educational material as I want to, I could have seemingly infinite volume, like just an infinite number of bellies and pigs to slaughter and work with and demonstrate with and do various recipes and preparations. But we don't have that, and that is kind of also what makes the family pig what it is. It puts some very real boundaries on it, because we can't just run around and pick up already slaughtered pigs to do little shorter intensive workshops. Because I am so insanely committed to doing everything myself well. The pig just for demoing purposes, I'm not willing to use a Costco pig or something. It has to be a perfect animal, and I need to slaughter it perfectly. And the family pig is what enables us to tell the whole story of the pig, while at the same time not forcing us to waste like lesser pork or to use lesser pork to fit it into a class. Consequently, the family pig is slaughter, butcher, and curing. It's the whole thing, because we don't just have the educational, reason to go through each step, but we actually have the very real limitation of this pig will rot. and so we have to actually finish it.
Must process.
Yeah, all the way. And so you get to feel that in the family pig class, that the burden of abundance again, of 2 whole pigs, and we actually have to take them all the way.
Right.
And that is it's a real limitation. It's not an artificial one to just suit the class,
Sometimes our class members' eyes grow wide at the end of the first day, or even at the beginning of the first day when the pig is dead on the ground. They're like, oh, okay, we got to do this.
It's kind of a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're usually like, I've had people say at the end of just the first day, because it's a 3-day class, like, I've already got my money's worth. This is amazing. They just already.
So gratifying. Yeah. People really love it.
So anyway, so look for all those manifestations of Meatsmith content, butchery and education and all that. So I guess without further ado, let's dive into the content.
Yeah.
So what I had planned for today was a little bit of an outgrowth from our last podcast, which was on tools. Yeah. We talked about tools, and all of our tools are housed now in either a butcher shop or a slaughter truck, and these are our tools as well. They're our biggest tools.
Yeah. The truck and the shop.
Yeah, and they took a lot of time. And they're still not completely dialed in either. No, not even. So, we've gotten them to a degree, a rate of maybe 80%, 90% efficiency. And which is huge. It's much better than what we were operating at, which is
negative 110%.
Okay, I wasn't gonna go that low, but no. I trust you. You're the technician of the business. Yep. So
parts of my brain are still dissolved from the inefficiency.
You've lost years off your life.
It's gone.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's gone. Yeah, like just washing things in sinks that are too small. There's nothing that will make you more just spontaneously grateful for indoor plumbing and a large sink basin.
Commercial sinks.
Than trying to wash humongous bloody bus tubs in a sink that is half the size of a bus tub. Yeah. That is a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, even when we first moved to this house, still our domestic sink is smaller than most domestic sinks by a lot. Yeah. So we weren't just operating in a commercial sink. We weren't just operating in a normal domestic sink. It was like the teeniest, like, I don't know what, like a foot and a half by
maybe
almost 2, like by a foot and maybe like a foot by a foot and a half.
It was really tiny, and we broke so many faucets. Remember?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Leaking down. Oh, okay. Let's move on. This is traumatizing.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the shop construction, the truck construction. But actually, before we get there, and as part of the process of acquiring these massive tools, I wanted to talk about money too, because there's a lot of people that come to our classes and they mention, okay, so where did you get the resource for this? And I think that's a really integral part of the story, because we didn't start with a ton of money, and we never had big, massive loans. We didn't start out with assets of any kind. We had no big savings. We didn't have any moneyed family members. Yeah. We're pretty normal in our upbringing, as far as not having capital. You know, and we didn't have big investors, but we did have some little spurts along the way of getting juiced up enough just to take it to the next level. And so we've had students they're kind of shy and asking, like, okay, so like, how did you get the money to do this? But they don't quite know how to say that. And then we tell them and they're like, oh, and it really kind of gives them a sense of this is doable.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no venture capitalists involved. We didn't get just like this big surge of income
or a big loan.
Right.
Yeah.
But with little incremental things. And so anyway, so we're going to kind of break it down as far as what we were able to do, when we were able to do it, and when the money was there to make it all possible. So,
we've talked about that a little bit before too, that we're on the slow growth.
Yes.
In a previous podcast.
Yeah.
A slow growth model.
We do advocate.
Model makes it sound official when it.
Yeah.
But, it was all just asking friends along the way and not being afraid to just start to offer the service, provide the service.
Right.
Even though we were sort of ill-equipped to supply it.
Yeah.
But all that means is rather than compromising the quality of the service rendering, you just kill yourself. You work extra hard and you make it work.
And we are hard workers.
And you build up to the point where it's demanding less of you. But the quality of the output has actually never changed. It's always been very high. And that has been a really interesting perspective to operate under. And I've just kind of assumed it. But it has really made now my decisions to get certain equipment very qualified.
Mm-hmm. We feel much more confident about them.
Yeah. And because I am so in tune to the quality of the end product and so committed to that, and also so cognitively familiar with it. Like I know exactly what the finished product should look like and taste like. That I know exactly what I can do to reach it in terms of getting more efficient, getting new tools that work better, and maybe are a little more complex or more expensive, upgrades without compromising that final product.
Right. Yeah. So we definitely advocate the slow growth model because it's worked for us. I think quicker growth models, even for smaller businesses, they still are good. Like, for instance, we have a friend who's going to start a brewery. And that definitely requires a bigger surge of upfront capital than what we needed. Mm-hmm. And I think there's value to that too. But I'm hoping that this podcast can actually just provide some ideas. Like I've listened to people talk about their small business and the story behind how they grew it.
Yeah.
And it just helps provide some context and little ideas here and there.
And I think there's two paths you can take. And you mentioning the brewery reminds me that there is, he has to gear up to meet a certain volume. Immediately. Right,
at the very beginning.
And we could have done that too.
Right.
That is a way to approach building either the service to be able to accommodate so many pigs per week, or the product if you're selling something that you go for volume to reach the volume that makes sense and that will pay for your initial investment right away. And this is where I have more experience, I guess, even with my growing up with parents who are entrepreneurial and other businesses I've worked for, you can go volume or you can go diversity. And we have done diversity. So and I don't even know if it was intentional. This is all just hindsight. But we, being one person with a chain hoist and a pickup truck, from the very beginning, we decided we're not playing the volume game. Obviously.
That was decided for us.
Yeah. I mean, crazy. It took me 2 hours or more to do one pig with a chain hoist, because I didn't have the luxury of putting the chain hoist next to the pigs. Sometimes I'd have to drag them quite a distance to the nearest tree that could support the chain hoist. So clearly not going for volume. But knowing that we had to compensate. And for us, I think we did it through diversity. So the teaching and the education was another product that we could, in addition to the service, that we could provide to make up for what we were lacking in volume.
Sure.
And that has happened several times. I mean, I think I might have already told this story, but this wasn't even that long ago, when one thing falls off, we lean really hard on the other. And
Right.
this has happened so many times where, wow, we're just not getting a lot of processing jobs, at all. Not enough to support us. And so that's where the butcher's salt came from.
Exactly.
We actually
Lean times.
needed to pay the mortgage. We knew we needed $500.
That's what it was, yeah.
And actually, we knew that's exactly how much we do need. It wasn't.
I came to him with my little checkbook and
Yeah.
like, we need $500.
Yeah,
Ready
right,
go.
right now. Yeah, it wasn't like it would be nice if we had $500. It was more like must have now. And so, but there was nothing on the calendar, so
Right.
there was no processing
Right.
jobs. And so we
But
thought,
we did have
okay, let's figure out how to sell something and get $500.
Yeah.
And so we did. And I wrote the butcher's salt, and Andrew Plotsky at farmrun.com was still on island at the time. So he was still local to us.
Yeah.
And, which is no hindrance to working with him, by the way. But he was here and he illustrated them and was part of designing those Butcher's Salt chapters. And we wrote them. And we met, it was like a miracle. We met exactly our goal and exactly the time we needed to.
Right.
We made $500 in a week.
Right.
And we're like, yes.
Yeah, we can pay the mortgage. We had just moved to this new house.
Right,
too,
yeah.
So we were just sweating bullets.
Yeah. All that to say, that was a benefit of diversity. And I've seen that a couple times in other businesses. I worked for a farm, Seabreeze Farm on Vashon here, that was so diversified it was almost chaotic. And I think they've actually honed things down since I've been there 8 years ago or whatever it was now.
Yeah.
But with the chaos, there did come this strange stability that was, well, if we can't sell cheese anymore, we're still selling wine and raw milk and pork and sausage and fresh lamb. And if any one of those things had gotten taken out, there was still a lot to lean back on.
Right.
So it's an interesting benefit of diversity. It makes your life more complex, and it's a lot of balls up in the air at once, and that's tricky. And I feel like our constant struggle, because we've not chosen the volume but the diversity game, is to bring the processing in line with the educational material so that it's almost two birds with one stone.
Right.
In terms of energy output.
Making what little material we do have
Yeah.
on hand stretch as far
Yes,
as it can
exactly.
go.
So turning processing into education. We've almost never, as a rule, and maybe this is a big deal, actually, now that I think about it, we've never just acquired pork or meat solely for the purpose of a class or
Right.
solely for the purpose of education. It's always served both purposes. I guess an exception would be if we raise pigs for a family pig class, and that meat goes to us, and we're not. It's not a share or anything.
Even then, sometimes it goes to pork shares.
Right. Yeah.
People
right.
who have bought it.
And those exceptions are few, but the rule is that it's had to serve both the processing goals, Farmstead, Meatsmith, and the educational.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we've mapped out, because I've met with some friends who are like business consultant type people, and they've actually mapped out for us, okay, where does all your income come from? And I've looked at it like on a whiteboard, and I go, actually, it's coming from like 6 or 7 different places.
Right.
That's a little
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
But it becomes our. They're starting to come
Excuse
in.
me.
What I was going to say was it kind of stems from that principle. I've learned that what seems like our greatest weakness can turn out to be a strength.
Right.
At times.
Yeah.
So we've been okay with that. We've just been, and still even last year, like, okay, we don't have a lot of jobs. Let's build a membership program.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's very strange.
Or at Christmas time, things felt really lean again, and I knew jobs were going to trail off in the spring. And I thought, okay, let's amp up our pork share program.
Yeah.
Oh, I know this farmer; he's got some angelitas. Let's,
Right.
And so.
Yeah. That's. I guess that's the paradox, that in the chaos of having more things in the air than you can hold in your brain and manage in at least a satisfying way if you're very conscientious. But having that chaos is paradoxically stable.
Yeah.
It's kind of a stability. The chaos of diversity is stable.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking about, just as we wrap up this intro, was about the risk factor. in any model, whether you're going diversified services or big volume, you still got to take a risk. And so either way, whether it's investing, getting a small loan or a big loan, or just investing your time. Like I can't put as much time into this job because I'm really going for it here. And so, I'm hoping that this can be relevant to a number of people, not just, potential processors or home processors, but if you're trying to make money at your homestead and you just want to sell some of your livestock or your vegetables or any food related, any business, any small business, in order to grow, there needs to be risk. And
I think are you done with that?
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt you, but
okay.
One thing I was going to say in relation to that is, and I remember this, not that I've been asked this, but it was a mystery to me until I was in the position to need capital to do things for the business. I need to buy a truck or something so I don't break my back.
Right.
And it can seem mysterious. Well, where do you get the capital? If it's not a bank, if you're not going to go the loan path for whatever reason, do you just like find wealthy people and ask them for money? Like you just look around your community and you think, well, I actually kind of know that they're pretty well off. Maybe the answer is yes. You go and ask them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And
even if the answer is no, there people that want to invest or that have capital, to invest, they will be so beneficial. They will give you a lot of guidance. And the best thing they will do is say no at the beginning. And they'll be like, well, no, but maybe if you draft up an executive plan, a summary, and a projection for the next 5 years and show me how you're going to pay off the cost of operation, and of the capital in a particular time span, what your plans are, who your market is, then the answer will probably change and they will be interested. So don't be shy. There is no mystery to that. There's no secret club that you have to be a part of. Just ask.
Yeah.
Like literally notice a wealthy person and go ask them for money.
Yeah.
And,
build a relationship.
And obviously out of gratitude, because they have, for a lot of them, I think the resource and the thing that they have to offer to the world is their money-making power. And that is a skill in and of itself, and it's incredibly valuable. And so they are actually very knowledgeable. Of course, it's actually very rare that you just get extremely wealthy by accident. So anyway, I would just say look to those people in your realm as huge resources.
Yeah, because even if people did inherit a large sum of money, if they've kept it, it's for a reason.
Yeah, they're smart.
They know how to invest it, use it, make it grow.
And they will be able to tell you.
Give it away to the right charities or whatever.
Yeah, and they'll be able to tell you where your idea is dumb. And because it's a very real limitation. They need a return on their investment. And you, as much as them, you want your business to be able to make that return. And then some.
So let's talk about how we began then. I kind of, as I was drafting this up, I really discovered five phases of the Meatsmith operation growth, and we're currently still in the fifth. So it's not over, but it's wrapping up. As far as having the complete shop, the complete truck. The property is still a disaster. So this doesn't include like the homestead thing or like our house.
Yeah.
Like we're getting a new oven finally. I want to do some serious kitchen remodeling at some point in the next few years. But we've dumped a lot of money into the business, and we're finally nearing the end of at least the infrastructure growth. So I'll wait for Brandon. But as far as the business, having an equipped butcher shop and slaughter track to then make money with.
Yeah.
We're nearing the end of that part of the business expansion and growth.
Yeah.
So that's been really exciting. So the first has to do with when we first began. The first phase we started in 2010. It was August, I remember. You had just completed your second year of working at the local farm where you learned, you self-taught yourself these skills. And then in August, we got pregnant with John Luke.
Oh, yeah.
Our second.
That's right.
And so we knew we were in for it. We knew our family was growing. And we didn't really want you to be working 70, 80 hours a week for someone else. I mean, if you're going to work that much, at least let's keep it in-house. So, so we decided to go independent. And we thankfully had both of sets of our parents ran their own businesses. And so we had at least a little bit of experience in knowing what that was like.
Yeah.
we weren't completely blinded to the whole process.
Yeah.
But so we in 2010 we lived in a different house. We were in a neighborhood, very small neighborhood. The house that actually we helped build when we first moved up to Vashon Island, and we built it out of a home ownership program that was sweat equity. They called it sweat equity.
Yeah, instead of paying a down payment, you put in the physical labor to build the home.
Right.
And then when it was completed, when everyone's home was completed, we all moved in at the same time, and you just started paying your mortgage.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of unique.
So it was unique, yeah. It was a very small neighborhood. So our neighbor was like less than 20 feet from us. And it's a very small backyard. But it was a great first home. It had basically a 1-car garage. And that's where we started butchering.
That was the shop. And that's when we started acquiring tools. And our first tools were a 55-gallon drum and a chain hoist. And I think a grinder was one of the first things.
And we talked about all that in our last podcast. We enumerated all the costs involved there.
And we bought this walk-in.
Yeah, we did.
In our old house.
We didn't run it because it was too big, even though it's teeny tiny.
So it's our whole process of buying equipment has been find it on Craigslist when we have the extra money.
Right.
Buy it and just kind of store it until we can use it. And we did that with our humongous 3-basin, 2,000-pound stainless steel sink from the 70s. And we did that with our walk-in, which are humongous things to store and have be useless. they were
years.
They weren't useful for, I mean, how long would it have been? 4 years?
Yeah. Well,
until we got into
the
this
walk-in
place.
Is what, like 8x8 kind of a walk-in?
It is. It's
10 by
cube.
10.
8x8.
Very small, And so there's panels, the insulated panels, and we just stacked them next to each other in our garage to stay out of the rain. But that was actually probably a year or two into the business. And we bought that. I think we bought that with like a tax return or with the money we had saved maybe.
On Craigslist.
Right. I remember it was like just over $2,000.
Yeah.
And without the refrigerant unit, actually.
Yeah, well, it did have it.
It
but
came with it, but it was a piece of junk.
Too old.
Yeah.
Refrigerant that was, like a terrorist agent or something.
Yeah.
It was a poison outlawed. You can't use that refrigerant anymore.
So, but going back to the very beginning when we realized we wanted to start Farmstead Meatsmith, we looked at our garage, and it was a 1-car garage, and I mean it still had all of the furnishings of the domestic needs of a garage. I mean, our laundry was in there and storage of various normal things, but about half the garage we did have some space. So with the loan that we got, and I believe I told you last time, but it was a $3,000 loan. It's a small loan from some friends who who had been wanting to help us in some way for quite a while before then. They really believed in us, and they knew that we could do something unique if with just a little bit of capital. So they gave us they loaned us $3,000, and we kind of set up payments with them. I think over the course of a year, we paid it back maybe. And we outfitted the little half of this one-car garage with a stainless steel table.
Oh, yeah.
We did have an antique butcher block. And we had this for our walk-in. We had a sliding door refrigeration unit that your parents actually bought for us.
Right.
It was about $800, I think,
Yeah.
that our electrician was selling.
Uh-huh.
And so we knew we could trust that it was of decent quality because the electrician that our family uses was reputable. And we bought it from him, and it was just like a 2-door sliding
glass door, yeah.
Refrigerator. I mean, it could fit maybe 8 bus tubs in it.
Yeah, and that was just our curing fridge. We were hanging carcasses remotely at the local grocery store.
Right. That was just to house the cut.
The bacon.
The cut meat cuts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was basically the beginning of.
That was the first shop.
We did a few classes in there too.
Yep.
Maybe a dozen or so. And we also leaned heavily on the hospitality of certain farmers to host us for actually both slaughter and butchery sometimes.
Out in the field.
So
yep.
It had its own charm to it. It was it was really crazy and kind of bootstrapping things, but it was still now that we're this far out of it, I look at it, fondly.
Yeah. And I think particularly the value of those classes was that we could demonstrate that none of those lacks of facility were hindrances to quality, to product, to what you could achieve with a pig or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Because some of those were slaughter in a field one day, and then the next day was butcher in the field, and make bacon and stuff, trucking stuff around with coolers and yeah.
So then 2 years later, we weren't pregnant yet, but I knew we wanted more children, and I knew that there was a high possibility of getting pregnant soon. I think John Luke had just been born maybe or something. And I thought, we got to move. And if we're going to move, we should do it now because, I just knew our business we wanted our business to grow and we wanted our family to grow. And we were very quickly outgrowing in both of those ways that home. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of thought that was the time, let's do it. And the market was really good for home buyers because it was 2012.
Yeah.
And
things were still very squishy in the real estate
world. It was very, very low market.
And so it wasn't a fluke because it took a unfathomable amount of work on your part to buy this house, but it was kind of miraculous that we got this 2.5 acres and with a house and with a wood shed that became our smoker with the addition of a few pieces of plywood and screws.
Just became our smoker.
Right.
No, actually the first manifestation
it was in there too.
We did it right away, yeah.
And with a covered car garage that became our shop.
Yes.
And it wasn't a garage, it was just a roof with 6 posts and that's it. So it did keep water out.
It's still a 1-car garage.
Yeah, it is.
In a way.
Yeah.
I mean, the space hasn't expanded a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, compared to the teeny tiny space we were in our 1-car garage in our little home, it's probably quadrupled.
It's 400 square feet. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I can't remember. So maybe not that much. But
it's still really, it's tight in here.
Yeah.
But it's perfect for our scale. And the other reason why we really felt like we needed to move was because we knew we wanted to grow the business and the home and, domestically. But we didn't know, I knew we weren't making enough money to pay rent on a small kitchen somewhere.
Oh, right.
I just didn't feel like, we can't put out that $1,000 or $2,000 a month for renting space. Not yet, at least.
Renting space where we could butcher, like a commissary kitchen.
Exactly.
Yeah. That I would commute to.
That seemed out of our league at that point yet. It still feels that way in some ways. I'm so glad that, you're on site, you're home doing this, you know. So yeah, so that's why we moved. We got a giant tax return that year, and we put it to good use on our down payment. And we even took out some little private loans with some other friends that wanted to help us. And they knew that this
Quite
was
a few small loans.
like 3 or 4 probably. And these friends, they knew that this was both a business and a domestic move. They knew that this was going to help launch us, if anything would, to getting Meatsmith off the ground. So for the sake of the family in its entirety, they really helped support us in doing that. So.
Yeah, and then we set to work to make the shop functional, because all we had here, like I say, is just 6 posts and a roof and a dirt floor. And so we actually did quite a few classes in our home, in our house.
We still did, yeah.
While we were building this place. And a lot of it was built, it takes labor, clearly, to build a structure. And we were able to trade, and a lot of labor was even just donated by people that liked what we were doing, out of the generosity of their hearts and because of their own convictions. And I remember the first thing we did with the shop was the slab.
Yep.
And that was like the first year we lived here. That was pretty quick, right away. And then
we
it
were
was
excited.
and that was awesome. And we had Colin, I think was his name, and he came out and he was a finisher, a concrete finisher, which is an art, by the way. It is not easy because it requires great finesse in a very short time, and you are rushed to do something smooth and that takes finesse.
And it's perfect.
And it has to be perfect on account of the fact that it's concrete and it's going to last forever. Yeah. And so so we built forms, and my dad helped, and my brother-in-law, and Andrew was there helping. And we built forms and put the lattice of rebar in, and the truck came, and Colin was there. And Colin, who was a quiet guy by personality, he took over like a boss and like an expert, and he ordered us all around, and he finished this thing perfectly and beautifully. And that was as a trade for his girlfriend to take more classes with us.
That's right.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
And Camille, yeah. And so that's the slab we're on. And then it was a slab for many years. And we couldn't use it.
Right.
It was just a slab again, and kept doing classes in the home. And then I feel like the next thing, and
go ahead.
All the while we're searching on Craigslist.
Yeah, keeping our eyes out.
Yeah, and we did not have a blueprint of the shop, all previously mapped out. I just knew vaguely that I didn't want to lift carcasses, so I knew I needed a trolley system. I knew I needed huge wood cutting surfaces and huge stainless surfaces to work on. And I kind of had the spot picked out where the walk-in would go. But again, that's not a result of having a blueprint, but because I already had the walk-in. So I knew exactly its dimensions and where it would go in the shop to be.
Right. Well, so we've just kind of encapsulated the second phase of the business, the infrastructure expansion. And so the first being back at our old home in the tiny little half of a single car garage. And then the second phase is buying this house. Yeah. Which, as you say, was a miracle in itself. And it's not like it's on Vashon Island. So it was, I want to tell you how much it was, but it was somewhere between $100,000 and $300,000. I'll just say that. So lower, it's
for this region, that is very affordable.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It was a foreclosed
for what
home.
It is. Yeah. It
was a foreclosed home. It was at the bottom of the market. So we got a good deal, and we've been putting it to good use ever since. But we couldn't have done that at any other time in the market history, at least on Vashon.
Yeah, no way.
And we had a really great broker who was pulling out miracles right and left the whole time, getting us what's it called again?
Yeah.
I put all the terms out in my head.
I know.
Qualified. You get qualified, right?
Yeah, and that was, I think that is a good illustration of the other path that we took, which I guess was the slow growth, incremental method, is that while so one of the costs is that things take longer, but the other is that you are intimately engaged in every step. You are the labor, for example. You are the person that is going to build the shop.
Yeah.
And in the case of purchasing this home, Lauren, you became like you were almost like a realtor and a broker, and it was so complex. I can't believe how
I had to learn a whole industry.
How far you had to go to make this house work, because it was a foreclosure and because the rules for real estate purchasing were changing like on a weekly basis while we were qualifying for our loan. Mm-hmm. But that is definitely part of the slow growth model, is that you're actually engaged in the nuts and bolts of every single process. Yeah. And, I don't know, that worked for us. It was also very stressful. And mm-hmm. We could not quantify the amount of time and hours it takes, because it's just too much. Yeah. Whereas the more upfront capital approach to doing things is that other people who are actually experts in those fields you're able to hire them.
You're doing a lot more delegation. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they are making those things happen. Whereas mm-hmm. our whole growth period has been, or the building of this business has been 100% hands-on. You are the driving force of each step. You're the boss of each project. There's very minimal delegation.
Yeah,
like none.
You recognize a need, like, okay, we need a new home. Mm-hmm. How are we going to do it? Okay, learn the real estate industry. And like, okay, we've got the home. We need to build a butcher shop. So, okay, I'm going to become a general contractor. Mm-hmm. And then you learn that whole industry, like how to build a building, which, I have an immediate upfront reticence toward, because it's the unknown. It's hard. I just want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to do that. But then if you look at what you actually want, you just do it.
And what you're capable of. And we had already built our home, and I grew up, my dad is a builder.
Right. So it wasn't completely foreign ground.
That wasn't completely unknown to me. And nonetheless, I was still really grateful for one of our good friends, Drew on Island, donated a lot of his time just because he's into small scale agrarianism, and he's a builder on Island, and he put in a lot of free mm-hmm. hours on this shop. Yeah. And
that he'll cash in someday.
Yeah,
he tells us that one day he'll take some classes with us.
I know he should.
Yeah.
But he did a lot of the framing, which was quick.
We'll get to
much
that.
Quicker than what I did.
You're skipping ahead to the phase 3.
Oh, okay.
I want to put the people through a little bit of a depression.
Oh gosh, really? That's not good podcast.
No, the end of phase 2 was waiting for years.
Oh.
Right? That's part of it sometimes.
With the slab.
It was poured. We got a giant concrete in here, and then we got and then we just had to wait.
Right. And right, it was a concrete slab. We were still slowly acquiring things on Craigslist.
Yeah.
The walk-in was just leaning up against a post. The sink was just sitting here, useless.
Yeah.
No walls. And I found a local slaughterhouse that was closing. And so I was able to purchase what was left of their trolley system. So that's the roller hooks.
That happened at that time?
Yeah, because it was sitting here on the slab floor for a long time.
You're right, okay.
Without new walls.
That's right.
But, under not getting rained on. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you are jumping a little bit into phase 3, because what happened then was we had been waiting for so long. I'm like, we got to do something. Yeah. Right? We need to build this shop, and we need money to do it. We got to get a loan.
Okay, yes.
And so we weren't able to quite build it yet, but we did have a big influx for us. It was a lot of money, influx of money, through a personal loan. Yeah. And then we started buying the truck. Yeah. So entering phase 3, we had some friends at our local parish. Yeah. And they had made a comment to you at one point, because they saw that we were starting our own business. Yeah. We were a few years into it, and we hadn't
Yeah, it's a small parish. It's a small community, and
Yeah.
we're very vocal about all of our trials. And so we just complain to each other as catharsis.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a few small businesses in our parish.
Yeah, there are.
Kind of a
Yeah.
lot. And so we get together and we commiserate.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think it was one of those. And
Well, and he had said too, the gentleman, he said he had wanted for some time to invest in a local Vashon business.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm putting it on him, really.
Yeah.
It's his fault.
Yep, big
He wanted to
daddy.
throw his money at us. No, he didn't.
Yeah.
He knew there was a need, and it was a need that he had been desiring to fulfill.
Yeah.
And so it was actually right for both of us.
Yeah.
That's how I understood it. And then his wife, she's kind of like me. She does all the
She actually
the
makes the
background.
things happen.
Well,
Yes.
some ways, yeah.
Well, in all the ways.
In some ways, yeah.
Makes the things happen.
So they loaned us $46,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a whole payment plan and everything.
And that was the box truck,
So we bought the box truck,
which
with that.
was
I have it all
just
written down.
a refrigerated box. So no trolley system, no tracking, no winch, no crane.
Yeah.
Just a big refrigerated box.
That was $11,000.
Yeah. And we bought that used, and it's a good truck, manual transmission, diesel, cab over.
Ugh,
I can
it's-
turn on a dime. I can do donuts
It was a
around
great
Pebbles.
purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good truck.
It should have been more. It should have been more than $11,000.
That was a good truck.
Yeah. We consolidated a little bit of the personal loan debt that we took out to buy the house, right? Because I mentioned we had a couple of personal loans with the down payment, so we consolidated that debt. We did a little bit of branding, website work.
That's
that was
right.
a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
And then we did $3,500 of electric work on
Shop?
the shop.
Yeah.
We got the electricity out to the shop.
Right.
So
Dug a
that felt
trench.
like a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
And it has a sub panel.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's when we bought it was $2,500 for the trolley system.
Yeah.
And it just sat here on the concrete slab with no walls around it.
Yeah. And it was a cool find because my buddy Finn came with me to pick it up because it's all extremely heavy stuff. We had to dismantle it at the old slaughterhouse, put it in my newly acquired box truck that was empty, and bring it here. And it so happened to fit the length of rail that we need to the inch. And I had to bend a lot of it, but I cut kerfs and tree stumps, and we heated it with a propane torch, and I was able to put some really good angles and bend it so that I have a loop in my walk-in, and curves where we needed it, and it down to the little railroad transitional train track Y dealios that change the track, the path of the trolley, to everything, the part that sticks outside of the shop to receive the carcasses. It was all just exactly enough. It was really incredible.
Yeah.
And that it happened to be all that he had left.
Yeah.
Because he had already been
right.
gutted, and he was retiring after 50 years. His name was Lee, and it was the Tacoma Meat Shop. It was the first certified organic slaughterhouse in the country, right here in Tacoma, which is just a ferry ride away for us. And,
he was done.
He was very done. He was tired.
He had been burned out from the industry, I think.
Yeah, and which is a very common tale because he was a small slaughterhouse, still doing way more volume than we ever do. But he was a small organic slaughterhouse that also did poultry and beef. And I think he even did pork. So lots of balls in the air. But he was small, and so even with him, the expectation was of larger scale slaughterhouses that charge nothing, just nowhere near enough to support a living wage. And so he was pretty much butting his head up against that quandary for 50 years, and he was done. And he did retire and put his stuff up for sale, and that's how we got the trolleys.
Yeah. And out of that 46,000, that's almost all of that. I've kind of gone through everything.
Yeah.
The last 5,000 of it went towards building out our slaughter truck.
Yes,
It's a whole story itself.
it is, and it wasn't. A lot of things just lined up. I didn't go knowing exactly the kind of slaughter truck I needed. or box truck I needed when we were shopping. I knew I needed it. I wanted it to be refrigerated, and I wanted a manual transmission. I wanted a diesel, and I wanted the cab over so I could turn on a dime, and get down really tight, windy farm driveways. And that's about it. But there's a lot of other variables that are totally essential about my truck that just happen to work really well.
Right.
One of them being the gross vehicle weight, the GVW. It's 18,000. And anything less than that would not be very good because the trolley and tracking system is very heavy. The framing system that we ended up putting in there. And then you put 2 beeves in there, 4 quarters. And
That's true.
now,
Yeah.
but it's not that it's a lot of weight just on the scale. It's that it's swinging weight. It's swinging, it's hanging. And that creates some very interesting gyroscopic situations when you're turning in a box truck that's already tall. And the meat is swinging. So for that reason, anything less than 18,000 GVW would be very spooky to drive. And it would be kind of unstable.
Right.
And it's a 14.5-foot box, which is a really weird size, but it's perfect because I
Not
needed
too
it.
small, not too...
Yeah, and I kind of needed it to be large because I truck out my 55-gallon drum, which takes up a ton of room, and a pallet. I like to bring a pallet to every pig slaughter job to keep the pig up out of the dirt.
We've got some bulky equipment in
Bulky equipment, that more than the standard truck that is not scalding and scraping.
there. Right. That's our shipping guy.
Yeah,
You can
UPS.
probably hear him. He's dropping off a package.
Yeah, the boys mob him every time he comes.
Yeah.
They're carrying big, heavy things.
Yeah. We order big equipment and they bring it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but then the outfitting of the truck, the actual.
Yes,
let's
right.
talk about that really quick because that was an exciting.
That was a challenge.
Yeah. And once again, we're in the 3rd phase of our Meatsmith infrastructure build out. The first was at our old shop, working out of our little garage. The second was acquiring this shop, this land, and this carport that turned into a shop, and then just sitting for a while, not being able to do much with it. And then the 3rd phase is now the $46,000 personal loan that we got from our friends and finally being able to acquire our truck with that.
And so
we still don't have a shop yet.
Yeah.
But we've got the truck, and we're like, okay, we got the truck, and we have the money. Let's make it right. Let's and the pickup. You had been working out of that pickup.
Yeah.
For so long, it was almost more fatiguing working out of your pickup truck, slaughtering, than it was butchering on our kitchen table. I don't know. Maybe they're equal.
Yeah.
We knew we could do.
It was rough.
Yeah.
And trucking carcasses, because I didn't have a way to cool them. So I would have to slaughter one animal and then put it on top of my clean truck bed. I had to keep it immaculate.
Right.
Laying it down, either in one of those big white coolers, and I use that a lot, but clearly some pigs are just too big for that. But I'd have to slaughter one and then take it to the walk-in and then come back and slaughter the rest. And so put multiple trips in the middle of the day, which really limited how much I could accomplish in a day. Incredibly tedious.
Yeah.
And so we bought the box truck empty. It was just a box that was refrigerated, which was kind of cool. And we talked to the dealer we bought it from that sold lots of used trucks, also had a huge shop where they would work on those trucks and swap out boxes for dump beds or different hydraulics or whatever. They could do anything on these utility box trucks. And I remember meeting with that guy, the head mechanic, who was way too intelligent for my job. And I had to try to describe to him what I needed, which if you haven't seen what goes on in a slaughter truck, like that is not common knowledge. It's hard to describe. It's hard to visualize. And he was very much just not wanting to do it at all.
Into it.
But he said everything but no. So I kept kind of going at it and trying to describe it, and finally got a quote from him for just part of the tracking or the trolley system that I needed in the truck.
I don't remember that.
And it was like $800.
Oh.
And it's like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And because it was just a fragment of what the truck needed.
Right.
It needed a frame, a steel frame, because the box itself has not the sufficient structural
That's right.
members to support hanging carcasses. So we had to build a frame within the box that could support the trolley, that could then support the weight of the carcasses. And so the way that happened was, took the truck to Whidbey Island for a class.
Right.
And it was just an empty box, but we were using it. You know, it was still better than the pickup. And still hanging carcasses at local grocery stores, wherever we might be. And we did a class on Whidbey Island with Glendale Shepherd, which is one of the
Creamery. Yeah.
one of the best creameries in this region. They make amazing sheep cheese, Glendale Shepherd.
We'll put a link to it.
Yeah, and at that class was a guy, and at this point I was telling everybody I saw what I needed in the box truck, just in the hopes that someone would understand what I'm saying.
And we didn't know this. Hang on. Let's set up some context here. We didn't know this going into it, but every other custom processing operation, at least in the Pacific Northwest, that we've run into, and there's several handfuls of them, they all came from, they're all family owned, and their great grandfather or grandfather or father built, they were doing what they did, what we were trying to do
a generation ago.
Right.
Yeah.
They built the truck. And so they're all completely unique, completely custom.
Yeah.
There's not like a slaughter truck shop or
Right.
store that you go to and like get one fully outfitted. That happens on the USDA level, where you're dealing with millions of dollars in truck equipment. But for just little one-offs, like, you just have to bootstrap it and do it, and find someone that'll do it with you.
Yeah. All the trucks in this region for small custom slaughter operations were built with buddies
Right.
in the driveway.
Yeah.
And welders, and they just figured stuff out, and they made it happen, and some of them are quite nice. They did a really good job.
Yeah.
And I am totally useless. I have no welding, metal cutting. I can't put my brain into that. Just to buy the equipment alone would be way prohibitive. Much less the time it takes to get good at it, to build something that I'm not going to have to fix all the time. But I did find a guy that does know how to do that.
So now you went to Glendale Shepherd and found this guy.
We're at this class, and I am telling everyone what I need in my truck in the hopes that they'll say, hey, I know a guy, or I know a shop that can do this. And I was doing it again, and a guy named Brian, who's very skilled, he said, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I remember I described it to him again because I didn't believe him. I thought, no. Everyone else I've told this, their eyes cross and they look at me like I'm crazy. Yeah. So I'm going to try to tell you this again because you must have not heard me.
Yeah.
Because this is crazy, what I need. And he's like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
And it was no problem.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing when you encounter someone who, to you, it is just the project you need done is so complex that it's unfathomable. And to me, I don't work with metal. And so it's absolute chaos. The notion of doing it, that is unexplored territory. I don't know how to do that at all. He does.
I know.
And
he
for him,
enjoys it.
And he enjoys it. And that is just the beauty of a tradesman, of an expert in their field, is that it's, wow, you just get it.
Yeah.
And you can do it. And it's, not only is it possible, it's actually no big deal. Yeah. In terms of complexity.
Right, because we juxtaposed that with the guy that we had just been talking to at the dealership where we got the truck from. It was just sort of a downer. Like he just didn't want to do it really. We were annoying him.
Because he has a limited number of things that he does in his shop, and he does them extremely well and quickly. Yeah. And the whole shop is geared towards those things.
It was beyond
not to building
scope.
A slaughter truck.
Right.
But Brian lived in Whidbey.
Whidbey Island.
And so he built the truck, and it took several iterations. Well, not iterations.
Just phases.
That's what I'm trying to say. We would talk about it, and sometimes we would make final decisions, right before I left. I would drive the truck across 2 ferries, get off of Vashon, get into Seattle, drive through Seattle, get back on a ferry to get it to Whidbey Island. It's an incredibly long journey.
Yeah.
And leave.
And we did it with 2 toddlers.
Yeah.
I think I was probably, we had 3 boys at this time, I think.
Yeah, leave the truck there. And, when I drop it off, I would just say, well, I think I need a frame system to support the trolleys. And we just kind of talk it out, and he would do some sketches. Really, it was his brain that made the whole thing happen. A pivoting crane that could telescope and be lifted up by a hydraulic jack in order to get the height that I needed to clear a pig over a 55-gallon drum on top of a burner.
14, 16 feet high.
Right. It had to be really high, and then a convenient way to bring that carcass into the truck without lifting it by using another telescoping trolley system. It was really complex. It's a lot of little pieces, and everything you do in steel feels very permanent. But he was able to really fine tune it and make it work. And the unique thing about our truck is that the crane is actually inside the box, and that little piece was a huge limiting factor. Because usually there's a huge utility bumper coming out the back end of the box truck, and that is the mount for the crane.
Right.
My truck is not that way.
Right.
And that was tricky to accommodate that.
So he fit a round peg through a square hole.
He did, yeah. And he made it work. And I have to say, like, it was, 4 or 5 trips? It was a lot.
At least 3 or 4.
And we were figuring it out as it was being built.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. I would use it for a while and be like, okay, there's a huge gap in the processing here. Like, I can't get the carcass in the truck without endangering my life or anyone that is standing within a 10-foot radius. We need to figure something out.
Yeah.
And, or there were members that didn't seem to be robust enough. And so we had to get creative and figure out ways to make them stronger. And I mean, this was all the way up until just a couple months ago, this summer.
Yeah.
We did work on the truck.
Yeah. With a different guy.
Yeah.
But we've since
just locally
brought
here.
it more local. Yeah.
And I needed to reinforce a particular member so that I didn't feel like the carcasses were going to fall into the dirt.
Well, we wanted to do beef.
And to accommodate the heavier weight of beef. And so all of that to say, we did not have a blueprint. I had a very foggy, but I don't know, some of it was defined, which is such a horrible, contradictory thing to say. That is so useless. But I had a foggy notion of what I needed. Like ergonomically, I knew the things that the truck had to be able to do in order for me to use it over and over and over again and not hurt myself.
Yeah.
And not compromise not make things dirty, not make a carcass dirty. I knew those things. But not the actual fine details of how that would manifest itself in steel and in the structure of the truck. And so all the way up until this summer, we have been polishing that stone. And just now, I feel like it's pretty good. We might be done.
Yeah. Yeah. We paid Brian $5,000.
Okay.
For all that work.
Which is amazing.
Which is a great deal.
It's a great deal. He did such beautiful work.
It was quality work. He was the brains behind it. We didn't have to keep, convincing him to keep working on the job with us. He just wanted to do it. And we just had to keep bringing it all the way up to Whidbey to do it. Yeah. Which was an investment in time.
It was. That was a long journey.
But it was well worth it. He was one of those guys that you see in rural areas sometimes where they weld little metal statues.
He did steel art from
It's
not a junkyard. It's a really amazing junkyard on Whidbey with lots of really used stuff that's organized and categorized. And he would go there.
It's like a wonderland for children.
It's incredible.
My kids loved going there.
He made these ergonomically really lanky, beautiful birds out of steel.
Yeah.
Parts
using
from
steel parts.
Anything.
You would recognize.
It was really incredible. From sawmills. It was really beautiful.
He was a creative guy. So and then now so since then we actually our auto mechanic. He and his buddy are welding guys. So they've taken over some of the slaughter truck necessities.
Polishing.
Yeah. So that wraps up the phase 3. And then early in 2014, we were left over from this loan with the last $3,000 of the loan, and we thought, okay, let's just do as much as we can to the shop. Let's build the shop next, and that I think we put into an oven.
Right.
Right.
That was a bit of a crime of passion.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. But now we're entering into phase 4 now, which is finishing building the shop and finishing it. Actually, it's not quite finished yet, but let's focus on the shop now because we've got the slaughter truck. It's kind of it's working.
It's good.
It's and let's do the shop now. And so we ran out of money from our original loan. We had $3,000 left. We knew that was just going to go to maybe one little thing, which is that oven, which if you're on YouTube, you can see right behind me. And then we have no more money left. But we really need to keep going because now we have this truck that's bringing in carcasses at a rapid pace.
Right.
We got to process them somewhere. So what we did is in 2014, we applied for a grant. Summer set in that year, and we ran out of our loan money, and we were paying it off. But I thought we need one more big influx of capital. So I was just looking around at grants, and they're really hard to find too. Specifically, when you want to build a building, for some reason there's a lot of restrictions. They want you to put the money into something else besides a physical building that's like founded to the ground. So anyway, it took some tricky searching, but I found one and I applied for it and we got it.
Yeah.
And I wrapped all of the work up into a little sentence there, but it was a lot of work. I'll never do it again. I can say that, but I am glad I did it once. Like I said, it's like, we need more money. I'm going to become a grant writer.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn how to do the whole process.
Yeah.
Even though I'm only going to do it once, but it paid off, and it was a $25,000 grant. And we used that money to immediately we wanted to build this thing as quickly as we could at that point.
Yeah.
And so the money actually started coming in 2015. The first thing we did was we hired your uncle. So we've said, his dad is a contractor, and his dad would hire his uncle,
who's
Luke's
a craftsman.
brother. Right.
Incredibly skilled.
He came up here for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he built, Drew. So going back to Drew, we met a guy on the island, and he was the guy who you said was interested in all things agrarian. And he was also in the middle of transition. What you want to do is find contractors who are done working for other guys and they're just starting their own business because they're looking for work. They're not charging a ton of money. They're really grateful to work for you, and they do great work. It's like artisanal work. And we caught him right when he was in that transition period. He was kind of extricating himself from working for someone else, for a bigger company, and he knew he wanted to start his own enterprise, his own operation. So he helped get the walls framed.
He did the framing.
Right. And then your uncle stepped in right at the right time, and he helped get all the exterior siding, interior siding. Yeah.
And I worked with both Drew and my uncle on and off, but it was really...
You weren't dependable to put everything up.
I didn't, I was slaughtering and butchering.
Yeah.
I did not have time to be a full builder.
Yeah.
But it was
kids, so it's not like you had time to take on a night job.
No.
I
got to help you put them to bed.
Unfortunately, that was...
Strap them to their beds.
Yeah.
Tie downs.
But that's another case, I think, of limitation producing something creative.
Yes, because this shop exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
It might not have done that had I been able to not hover, but be a part of every single thing that happened. Drew sourced the interior paneling here, which I never would have thought to use at all, but he happened to find a good deal in a bulk, what was left over from a bulk order or something. And he's just like, well, there's this.
Right.
So, okay, can't really think about it, but yeah. and it's perfect.
That's beautiful.
And then he also sourced the tile that you see on our walls here. This blue and white tile, which was a dream of ours. Because it's...
The wood paneling in the back there.
Yeah. And the tile, I cleaned every single tile on our walls. Because it was reclaimed. It had grout on all of it and glue.
It was a local Vashon bathroom remodel.
Yeah. And a lady salvaged all of it. No tile left behind, I think is her shtick. But we bought all this tile and I cleaned every single one. And there it is. My uncle put it up because he's very good at delicate, refined things like putting up tile, which is not easy. Very tricky.
He did a beautiful job.
He did a great job.
Yeah. And it was the color that we wanted to. We kind of always envisioned the Portuguese azulejo, which is so fun to say. The blue
blue tile.
Blue. Yeah. That look, for some reason, that was always our dream. So.
Well, blue deters flies.
Yeah. So there's utility in
common
there
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the tile.
The insulation.
And he did the insulation, the
and
windows,
the paneling.
The windows and the siding around the windows. Yeah.
Yeah. So my uncle, because he's good at what he does, he could build the window casement. And we got the windows used. You know, they're all blown glass because we're silly and we like old looking things. And we went to Seattle and picked up 3 windows.
At a second use store.
And so we had to build the holes to fit the windows. So we can't ever break the windows.
Yeah, we'll tell it to our sons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We also, let's talk about the oven real quick.
Oh, yeah.
The oven story.
That was Craigslist.
Yeah, that was a $300 Craigslist purchase.
Yes.
And
'twas about anchor.
Yeah. So we were told by an actual oven repairman. So we weren't just making it up after we bought it.
Yeah. At the time, we had Josh working with us. And we sent him on this errand to pick up this oven that we found on Craigslist. And the reason we chose it is because, well, it's cute.
It's old and yeah.
But it's also really functional. It is a wood burning oven and a propane oven, which is perfect because we don't have natural gas, but we can do propane. And we didn't want electric. And but I also wanted to be able to heat the shop with wood on account of the fact that we live in a forest. And so it's got 2 hot plates that are wood burning and then 4 propane burners. But all of that was just a fantasy. And when it arrived here, it was totally inoperable. It was a boat anchor. It was no good. But we had it.
That didn't
we were
deter us,
stuck
though.
with it. We were stuck with it, and we paid $200 or $300 for it. And so we found a guy who happens to be close, who happens to be the guy in America, the country of America, who fixes stoves. He restores stoves.
His business is called Homestead Stoves. We'll put a link to
Homestead
him.
Vintage Stove, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think
I'll
it's
find
vintage.
it.
Vintage
in the
Homestead
show
stoves. And he is way overskilled for what we needed him to do. Like, he consults with legislatures on wood burning vintage stove policies and stuff. He's extremely knowledgeable and skilled. He can replace porcelain. He can fabricate brand new parts because unlike cars, there's no place to go buy parts for an old stove. You just have to make them.
I think it's from the 40s.
Yeah. So not only did he repair our stove to perfect functionality and manufacture new parts to achieve that end, but he found the owner's manual and reprinted it for us to our little stove. So really fine work, but that was not cheap. And it shouldn't be because that was extremely skilled labor and he did an excellent job. And now we have this invaluable.
That was $3,000.
$3,000, yeah. So that's a little crazy. That is indisputably.
That was our high-end
crime of passion.
Yeah.
That is a crime of passion. 100%. We could have bought a much cheaper stove and put in a hood. And it could be this stainless steel thing. But we really, that was just something we needed in the shop. Just like I need sawdust on the floors and I need wood paneling on the walls and gigantic wood cutting surfaces. I needed a wood burning stove.
Yeah, to complete the whole
Kind of
package.
needed it.
And it heats the shop.
It does. It does really
So
well,
that's
which is
part of
pretty
it.
essential when we have classes. And we have lots of chattering teeth in here. It's good to.
Yeah, it was a
Heat the
good
shop.
investment.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot at the time.
And the shop has a chimney. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. This is another
worth
contractor, again, getting out of working for another guy, and he was starting his own
That's right.
heating service
Yeah.
or stove installation. He's doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
But he was looking for work, and we said, "Can you install this oven?" And he did. So he put the flue there and
Yeah.
climbed up on our roof and did the whole thing. And that was. So we made what we spent in the oven, we made up for in the oven installation because he did not charge that much money.
Yeah. It was a really good deal.
Yeah. Almost the last thing that we should talk about our shop is the showpiece butcher table here in the middle.
Yeah. The big table, our shop is 400 square feet, so it's teeny. And I need to be able to put at least 8 people in here for a class. But not just 8 people standing around, 8 people cutting meat. Namely 4 sides. So 2 people per side. And that is a tricky thing to accommodate in one space. And
plus that would be out of the way of this trolley system.
exactly, because we need to be able to swing carcasses in here. And of course, we didn't think about any of that when we were building the shop. This was all just after the fact. And we kind of worked ourselves into the position where everything was in here except for the big central table. And I knew that I needed this table to accommodate 8 people and 4 sides. And so we were worked into this tight spot, literally, where I needed a table to be 7 by 5.
Yeah.
Exactly. It could not be any bigger or it would block the trolley. And it couldn't be any smaller or it wouldn't fit the people and the pork.
Right.
So I thought I would have to build this table. And I had part of our story is that I was able to work for dear friends who build caskets on island, Marion Caskets, and in the wood shop while we were starting Farmstead Meatsmith. And so if it came down to it, I could probably rent his shop. And he had all the tools. He has all of the tools to build a really fine, build anything in terms of cutting surfaces. So I thought that's what I would have to do, and not having the time at all to do this. So naturally we went back to Craigslist again. And I don't know if we mentioned, but literally everything, the sink, the walk-in, the trolleys, the butcher blocks that you see behind us, the stove, the big stainless steel table behind us, that was all Craigslist. Everything we Craiglisted.
We call it the shop that Craigslist built.
It is, yeah. And so I went back to Craigslist for the table, and we started searching, and in a pretty really fancy neighborhood in Seattle, really high end, there was this humongous kitchen island for sale.
Yeah.
And it had a hole in it where a sink was, and it was a kitchen island, and it was 7 by 5.
It was.
And it was
to
edge
the
grain.
inch. It was perfect.
Yeah, edge grain maple, untreated. And it even has the added benefit of having drawers beneath it.
Yep.
See?
Show them.
Drawer.
Yeah.
Which I did not count on. And so...
They wanted $2,200 for it.
Yeah. Which it is worth every penny of that. It's a very nice
and
piece.
at the time I said, I only have $1,800.
Yeah.
And I told him a little bit about our business. And I should also mention we did this with the oven, the Homestead Stoves guy.
Right.
I told him about our business, so don't be shy in doing that either. Look what I'm trying to do, and look how successful I've been so far.
Yeah.
So they don't think you're just a total, like you're just trying to mooch or something.
Yeah.
But tell people about what you're trying to do. And they, like this lady, she said she had other buyers from other states for this piece.
Yeah.
And she sold it to us.
Yeah.
Because she just liked what we were going to do with it.
Yeah.
And she believed in it or whatever. You know, people like the story of where something really important that they've had is going.
Yeah.
And how it's going to be used. So
yeah, and I think that's different than just trying to work the price down.
no, right.
And especially when it comes to tradespeople, I can't do that.
No.
And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but with Homestead vintage stoves, like he's a skilled tradesman.
Yeah.
Like so skilled, he's kind of like one of the few in the country that can do what he does.
Yeah.
And incredibly beautiful work. And so his work is worth every penny that he charges.
Yeah.
But we told him our story and exactly what we needed from the stove, so that he would have context, and he could have taken the restoration much further than he did. He could have restored all of the porcelain. He could have made it literally shining brand new, something from the 1940s.
In fact, that's what he would have preferred to do.
Yes.
So he didn't come down in the price. He came down in his own expectation.
And what he would offer. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so we're able to say, we just need functionality only. And he was able to kind of rewrite what his offer as to what he could do to the stove based on that. Because I am so grateful for Drew and Colin, people that have just offered their invaluable skill to do something in a fraction of the time and energy that it would take me. I am not a builder first or a concrete finisher. And yeah, I could spend a couple hours trying to figure it out on YouTube or something, and then several frustrated visits to the local hardware store where I buy the wrong thing and but only find that out like 2 days later, and several trips back and forth and stress myself out, or could hire someone who knows exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And I actually derive real tangible pleasure from paying those people what they're worth. And so it is a considerable gift. It's really wonderful when they decide to discount or trade or give away even their labor. Just don't ever underestimate that. That is an extreme gift, and no one is owed that.
Yeah. We've talked about that before too, just valuing the economy that a tradesman.
And I would even say, we like to trade a lot in our, especially in kind of this new agrarian world where there's lots of food producers, and so food is kind of a tradable item, maybe instead of money. But when it comes to tradespeople,
for services,
asking for a trade for services, in lieu of cash money, is asking for them to do you a favor, and that's fine. I mean, but I just think it's good to know that you are asking for a favor in that case. It's not a straight up trade always, because they ask for money because they have mortgages. That's the first thing that they need, and I think it's good to be forthcoming about that and duly aware of the value of their
this whole labor. Process has been an education for us in learning the value of
and all growing up, both of our parents being people who offer services, and the tradesman is not fleecing you. Like, you 99.999% of the time, that is not, they're not getting rich by screwing people. They are giving you deals that you are not even aware of, because you do not have the skill or the eye or the knowledge of the field to recognize that it's a deal. That is actually happening way more often than anyone knows.
So all that happened in 2015. We built this shop in pretty much a summer. As far as we had, the roof was already here and the slab was already poured, but getting the walls up and getting everything sided and interiored and plumbed and electrical and everything, that was basically, it was a summer and a fall, I'll say, because actually we kind of put a deadline on ourselves because we had classes already scheduled to use in this shop in fall of 2015. And here we are in 2018, and it's still not completed. And there's been a few minor things that we've done some of the casing around the doors, was not done. And so we did that last year.
Trim, yeah.
We had this really ugly water heater that heats the water for the shop, and that was exposed for like a year and a half, and it was the biggest eyesore you ever saw in our shop. So
now it's hidden.
We covered that. It's encased in its own little water heater closet, and so little things like that to try to make it more comfortable in here. The thing that still needs to be done in here is staring at it right now. The scale, the hanging scale,
the trolley scale,
right? Yeah, and we have it. It just needs to be installed. Yeah. So there's some.
I've been using this little thing.
Expletive.
Yeah. It's just a hanging scale that you can. Hunters will use this just to weigh their deer carcass. But basically, this is not the way to go in a butcher shop because you have to lift the carcass off the rail and then, dexterously hook it onto the hanging scale that is also hanging on the rail, but a little lower. Mm-hmm. And it's, depending on the size of the carcass, that can be a titanic feat of achievement. That can be really difficult.
Physically and psychologically.
Yeah, and so the one thing we need is for a scale to be incorporated into the trolley system, which means you just roll the carcass and suddenly it is on a scale.
Yeah.
And you get a weight and then you roll it off of the scale and put it in the walk-in. So it's a roll instead of a lift. And we actually have the scale. It's part of that original trolley system that we purchased from the Tacoma Meat Shop. It's just sitting under the eave of my house and it weighs a lot. It's like, it is so heavy. It's so many metal parts. It's a 100% mechanical counterbalance scale, not digital. And you slide the weights along the slide and you get to see how much your carcass weighs. It's really cool.
It'll be beautiful.
It's really
when
complex.
It's installed, yeah.
It's going to be a beast.
It'll be hard to,
We're going to have to build scaffolding to hold it out. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Build scaffolding to hold it up so we can actually mount it because it's a floating piece of track. It's not touching the other track at all, but it has to be close enough for obviously the wheel to not fall through the crack.
Yeah.
It's a really cool system. 100% mechanical scale.
Yeah. So that's like the biggest thing that needs to be done in the shop. We also don't have lighting inside the walk-in, which can be kind of
it's dark in there.
But the other main thing that we have to do still is on the exterior of the shop.
Weather, seal, and paint.
We just got the gutters done
Hallelujah.
a few weeks ago. So for years we were operating without gutters, and that was frustrating. It kept getting the walls wet, and our freezers are lined up just on the other side of that wall, the back wall. And so when we were going out in the rain to put boxes of freshly cut meat into our freezers, we would get dumped on. We just have water dripping down our backs.
The roof line is perfectly lined up so that when you bend over the freezer, the water drips precisely down your shirt.
Yeah. In the back.
Exactly. Perfect. Like strangely perfectly. Shouldn't be that perfect.
Yeah.
But that's exactly how it's aimed.
Yeah. So we
plugged
get that hole up.
Yeah, that was glorious. And it just stopped raining. But
yeah.
Also the and torrential downpours up here, when we get lots, we'll get some heavy hours of rain in the spring or something, little storms, and the shop would flood.
Yeah.
And but that won't happen anymore with the gutters.
Yeah. So the gutters were done. We just actually yesterday had a painter come and give us a bid. Because
we're not sealed outside yet.
We don't have
the weather, and we don't have paint. It's just T111 siding.
Yeah. So that'll happen this spring too. And then the very, very last thing is some landscaping. Just really bare bones, basic. Like, we just got to make sure that the dirt is not pressed right up against the wall. So, just
a few things.
Just some minor things. But then our shop is done.
Yeah. And I should mention too, like, I don't know which phase this is part of. But
sorry, I've been a little organized. But
we had, our covered car garage was built in a spot that was not designed for a building. So it's kind of a low elevation relative to its surrounds.
That's true.
Which means it is prone to floodification, to the accumulation of water. And so we've had to put a skirt drain around the
Right.
shop and remove trees and all of that. It required a ton of earthwork.
The same gentleman who gave us the loan, the big $46,000 loan, he also had some big machinery, and he
built his big house. He built his beautiful home on Vashon with his own equipment, clearing land, excavators and dump trucks and all of that. So he's a really skilled operator. And he just, out of the kindness of his heart, came out here and put in a skirt drain for us. So the shop doesn't flood. It's got, washed rock and then a pipe under the ground, under the rock, that will carries the water away. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
A perforated pipe.
Yeah. So that's happened. We're just describing wrapping up the 5th phase. So we've had an operational shop, but it hasn't been completely waterproof in its efficiency. But we're nearing the end now.
It'll happen this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should say, as also part of that 5th phase is paying off this loan. So we're 6 years into paying off the 10-year loan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so which feels great.
Yeah.
And it's just been slow and steady, paying off that loan every month.
Yeah.
And so we'll be there in a few years. And yeah, I hope, that's all the content I have for you guys today, but I hope that this has been illuminating everyone's going to do it their own way. And we've built this according to the needs that arose at very specific times in specific ways. And I hope this can just give you ideas as you're listening to this for how you can meet the needs of your own operation, whether it's butchery or homesteading or any small business enterprise. But that it can be done, and slower is usually better, unless it needs to be kind of really quick. But this has been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for going through all that with me.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
Yeah. It's not over too.
No.
Yeah.
And I think the other big investment that we've had to do is in technology, which is a whole nother thing.
That's our
that
current
is almost
thing.
one that people just write off as a given. You're going to get this new extraordinarily complex and expensive computer or a smartphone. And we have always dealt with those things as they're business investments. It's not just a given. Technology, at least in our, stage in life and in our culture, highly effective and powerful technology it's almost a given, just a given cost of life. But it hasn't been for us. It's been a business investment. We need a computer that is very powerful to work well all the time. And for the business, for maintaining our website, which was another huge thing when we invested in the website, and to make it so that it could accommodate a diversified membership with videos and interaction and forums and contribution from an indefinite number of members in the Meatsmith membership. And that whole interactivity is extraordinarily complex. And you had to find a technician that could make that function. But then we also had to design it so that it's beautiful and winsome and consistent with our education. And that's what Andrew Plotsky's done at farmrun.com, the design element. But just designing the website is a multi-pronged operation involving many people. A tech and a designer. Yeah, a developer. That's what I'm trying to say. A developer and a designer. And then Lauren, that doesn't acquit you of doing a bunch of stuff on the website all the time.
Just maintenance.
Yeah, and so those are serious equipment investments, just as serious as getting a new sausage stuffer or.
Yeah. Well, it's we decided together that we wanted to venture into this new territory of social media.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, it's like, once again, there's a need. all right, I'm going to learn how to be a videographer.
Yeah.
and here we go. And it's not perfect, but it's, given our budget, given our upload speeds on our internet, which are dismal for some reason, given our inability to understand smartphones and their frustrating need to, let me get this right, film at a different frame rate than your audio equipment. And so when you go in and you try to sync them, they don't sync. And I'm getting into way too much detail here, but the rabbit trails that we've gone down to try to just deliver some content, some seemingly free content. It's rewarding now that we're actually doing it.
Well, and I would say that the difficulty we've had is that we've kind of approached the technology the same way we've approached everything else. But technology it's a little different. This kind of technology. Like we have filmed several prolonged, half-hour long videos with the iPhone. And that is a bottleneck technologically. Yeah. If, we have, because you also want sound to those videos, and that's where you get the difficulty.
Or two speakers. Just the idea, just going from one lapel mic attached to the iPhone to going to two speakers that are both equally being picked up. That itself was a huge, how are we going to, as a variable.
And fortunately, all that information is online. You can just YouTube any question you have about how to record yourself doing things. But I guess my point is that it's been scrappy. Everything we've done is scrappy. We slaughtered for years with a pickup truck and a chain hoist. And we were able to be scrappy for a year with the technology. But I am finding that is less possible in the technological realm. You kind of just need to pony up and get the thing that works when it comes to microphones and computers and cameras. Otherwise, the amount of time you will be wasting in trying to make something that is not designed exclusively for filming to film, like an iPhone, which you can do so much with it. But if you have qualitative standards for the sound and for the visual, then
and for the length.
Ooh, man. And you might lose things. You'll do lots of work and you'll lose hours. You'll lose a video. It'll just vanish. It happened to us several times. And a lot of that is bootstrapping on the technological level. Yeah. And unless you're coming to that battle incredibly tech savvy, which I am not at all.
Yeah, I'm not either.
And you already have a background in video, which a lot of people do. In fact, a lot of agrarians do these days, in our classes at least. Then you're fighting an uphill battle. And if you don't already have a facility in bootstrapping the technological end of things, just get the right thing. Save up and get the right thing.
That's where we're at.
Because your goal will be to produce content. And that's the thing that you're thinking about. You're actually dragged down by trying to figure out the technical element of things. And that is actually dissolving your brain and killing your soul. And you don't want to do that. Those are bad things for you. And I think you can avoid them if you do pony up. Like, this mic was a revelation to us, this big thing. But the thing about it is that it works. It works.
It's working.
And that's amazing. That's awesome. Thank God it works. Yeah. And that means I don't have to think about it working. I don't have to jerry-rig it and test it every few minutes, which those things can just multiply like this horrible labyrinth when you're doing technological stuff. And so
this is a great way to end. It's a great segue to if you want to help support us to keep doing this, we have a way, and that's patreon.com. And Patreon is a way to support creators who are leaping into the unknown with their technology. And we've made some investments here. If you'd like to help us maintain those investments and keep up with these content deliveries, we'd love to keep creating. This is really fun. Yeah. I mean, doing this with you, it's almost a treat.
It is.
And so, and we want to keep delivering it to you. And I would say, we hope that we want to give you the opportunity to help us in a joyful way. Like it's not a guilt-driven way. I hope we've had a lot of people, they thoroughly in a charitable way. They love giving to allowing us to keep delivering this content.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so far this recent upgrade, this podcast reflects some serious upgrades with our kit, and it's just much better and it's smoother. And
we're invested. We're committed. We're committing to doing
which
this.
like really directly improves the content, because that means
so.
we're not fiddling with this stuff, and I'm not starting with this pale cast of depression, because I know there's a possibility we could lose all of the filming we just did. But no, that's not going to happen. We've got external hard drive. We've got all these things. It's like, now we can think about communicating the stuff we actually care about.
Right. So you can go to patreon.com/Meatsmith and find a way to help donate on a monthly basis to help this podcast continue.
And I would say also consider the Meatsmith membership if you aren't already a member, which is a membership is going to open soon. We do limited periods of opening up the signups for membership so that we can manage them. But our spring signups will open on March 24th, and
that's right. It's a Saturday. Next Saturday. We're opening up membership for only a 2-week period.
And then you can sign up in that period for the Meatsmith membership, which is kind of anchored in our website, where all of the material is updated monthly, and where I keep a harvest journal of things that we do. I just harvested 6 mangalitzas, and so with 100% yield, 0 trim, and doing traditional Central European cures. And so I've been able to post a lot about that and document that whole process through the membership.
Yeah.
And then, so it's updated with stuff like that. And monthly videos, I release videos on it every month. It includes membership to the Meatsmith Table, our closed meats Facebook group, monthly Facebook live chats where you can ask exactly the question that you want answered, and we can talk about it with the rest of the Meatsmith community through the live chat.
I should also say this next time that we open up membership, it's only going to last 2 weeks, as we said. But it's the last time we're going to offer membership at the current price that it's at. So right now, if you were to sign up, there's almost a whole year's worth of content there.
That's right.
It's very dramatic looking.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's a lot to start with, and we're really proud of it. And so right now the price is $9.99 a month, and you can grab that price that will lock you into that price forever. If you sign up this next 2 weeks. If you don't, that's okay, but we are going to increase the price. I'm not quite sure yet what it's going to be, but it'll be a little bit, and we might even have like a sign up fee that will help pay for all the content that is currently there, that you're going to have direct access to right away, that other people, current members have slowly accumulated over the last year. So.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about the membership, is that it actually increases in value as time goes on. The forums just get more and more robust, with more people contributing their experiences in small scale slaughter, husbandry, harvesting, curing, and butchering, all pertinent to a smaller domestic scale, but also because that's kind of where all of this stuff came from. It is pertinent also to a more commercial scale too. If you want to know what bacon is like on an ontological level and a historical level, and how it fits in the home, and then how that echoes up into commercial production, that's kind of what the Meatsmith membership is about.
So we've got a number of ways that you can interact with us and get well, and I was going to say that even if you just were to become a Patreon patron, that also is a way to get your questions into us and get some more content. Once a quarter, I believe, we're going to try to do grab bag episodes where we answer your questions right here on the podcast. So there's a number of ways that we have developed over the last year to getting more interaction with you, our audience, and try to get more Meatsmith knowledge into your home. So thanks so much for listening to this and for sharing it if you feel led. And I think that's it.
Cool.
Peace be with you.